So, Father, thank you so much just for the opportunity to be together tonight, to, in a sense, join hands with Gil there in Israel and to be in the sukkah with him. Lord, what a wonderful joy that is to be together. And Lord, we just ask that you will reveal yourself to us in this very special time, and that that you'll bless Gil as he shares with us, as he shares from his own heart too of the importance of this time for him, for his family, and for his people. So we ask you to bless this time now. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So, Feast of Tabernacles. What is it for you, Ruth? I mean, when you know, in your world, how do you see Feast of Tabernacles? You know, when you read about it from scriptures, what connotation does it have? Because you know that this feast has a lot of relevance to the nations. I mean, it is actually the holiday of the nations
It's
for
the
us to
one.
celebrate together.
Yes, I remember the first time when we were in Jerusalem, and I think we were maybe up there at the same time as one of the feasts. I think it was maybe this one, and it was when we were first starting doing things together. And you really pointed out how amazing it was to see all the nations in Jerusalem, and it was like this amazing moment of, wow, this is really coming to pass. All the nations are coming, the nations are coming. And right now they can't come so easily, but we're here. I mean, we're here with you in heart. And I don't know, I never really, what is it for me? It's a reminder of God's the way he keeps us, the way he protects us, the way he guides us, and a time to literally come away and be with him. I think in under his protection, under the sukkah, and so that's what I mean. I miss terribly being there during Sukkot because
And
you know
I can imagine.
it's. In fact, I was looking up today to find where's the nearest sukkah to where I live, like a public one, and there's one not too far away. So I'm going to head over there maybe tomorrow because I want to sit in a sukkah. It feels wrong to be in the time of Sukkot and not to sit in someone's sukkah. So there we go.
It's you know that there are all sorts of aspects to this holiday, and last year when we had this kind of session, we actually covered all the aspects.
Yes.
I thought maybe tonight, maybe this year, we can talk about it more in a more intimate manner, but not without reading from scriptures a bit. So before we start to talk about the different aspects of this holiday, maybe we can read from Leviticus 23. In Leviticus 23, we have all sorts of holidays being mentioned, and God is talking to us about the dates and about the sacrificial work in each one. In chapter 23, verse 33, all the way to the end of the chapter, we read about Feast of Tabernacles. Let's read.
Shall I read it?
Please.
Okay. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles, for 7 days to the Lord. On the first day there shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it. For 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. On the 8th day you shall have a holy convocation, and you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. It is a sacred assembly, and you shall do no customary work on it. These are the feasts of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire to the Lord, a burnt offering and a grain offering, a sacrifice and drink offerings, everything on its day, besides the Sabbaths of the Lord, besides your gifts, besides all your vows, and besides all your freewill offerings which you give to the Lord. Also on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you've gathered in the fruit of the land, you shall keep the feast of the Lord for 7 days. On the first day there shall be a Sabbath rest, and on the 8th day a Sabbath rest. And you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of beautiful trees, branches of palm trees, the boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God for 7 days. You shall keep it as a feast to the Lord for 7 days in the year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. You shall dwell in booths for 7 days. All who are native Israelites shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So Moses declared to the children of Israel the feasts of the Lord.
Okay, so we have quite a text to talk about this holiday. One of the things you've read towards the end was about a reminder. This holiday is an indication. It's a reminder of the Sukkot, the tabernacles, the booths, as you said, in which God made us, which God created for us when He took us out of Egypt, and He made us sit. I mean, He helped us to dwell in those booths. In memory of those booths, we now dwell in this place, and first of all, it makes you experience the whole thing all over again. It makes you not just think about how is it that you are a link in the chain. It makes you be a link in the chain. It makes you be that. I mean, you experience the whole thing again. Now, did the Lord create this kind of a tabernacle? 15 square meters with this nice fabric in the background and decorations on the temporary ceiling? Probably not. The Jewish tradition talks about the clouds of glory, the same clouds of glory we read about during Mount Sinai event. The Jewish tradition talks about the same clouds of glory. They were the tabernacles. The tabernacles were made out of the clouds of glory.
Wow.
God's clouds of glory. And that was His protection. It was a sign of His provision, His protection, Him hovering and looking after to all of their needs during their time in the desert. And so not only Passover, which we celebrate in memory of Him taking us out of Egypt, not only a Feast of Weeks, 7 weeks later, receiving Torah after being taken in the wilderness after leaving Egypt, but also Feast of Tabernacles. And so first of all, this holiday has an aspect of God's provision. And I said before we started the recording, I said that the whole idea is to put your trust in Him and to go outside. It's leave your house, your comfort zone, your comfortable living room and nice design inside, and come outside. Come outside when it's there are places in the world where it's actually cold in this time of the year, and that is a challenge. Here it's quite hot in this time of the year. I mean, we're dealing with 30, 33, 35 degrees in the middle of the day. So to dwell in the booth in that kind of temperature, it's a challenge. Okay, with 6 children, even a greater challenge. But still, you need to do as much as you can to make it as comfortable as possible and to honor God by giving Him this time. God says, for 7 days, you and all those who are Israelites, He says it a few times, that you have to dwell in the booths, you have to dwell in the tabernacles. That's your house for the week. Okay, and we eat here, we play here, we can work here in terms of like bringing our laptops or whatever we need. We can we sleep here. So this is like
there are
sorry?
2 days when you can't work, right? The first and
yes, those are like the first day and the last day. So the first day and the 8th day, these are holy convocations. That's like a Sabbath. The rest of the week, all the days in between, are days which we can work. It's not work in a sense of building something or starting something new. It's not that kind of work. there are all kinds of definitions, what can be considered to be work. For example, I don't work this week at all. I mean, this week is dedicated completely to God. So, I don't do anything in regards to my regular work, nothing. And it's again, it's a sign for us to show we put our trust in you again. Nowadays, we did it back then, you provided back then, and we trust in you to do it the same these days as well. So that's one aspect, and that's a very intimate aspect of the holiday. I mean, each one is experiencing his relationship with God in a different way, and this act of putting your trust in Him and go to the uncertainty, go to the mobility, go to the unpermanent. Can you say something which is not permanent?
Temporary.
Temporary. Okay, go to the temporary. That for me, that's a very strong thing. For me, being a control freak who really likes to plan things and decide things and determine things and to know exactly what's going to happen when. For me, that's Feast of Time. That's my important lesson during this week.
Right.
There's another aspect of this holiday, which is about branches and plants, right?
Yes.
We need to take a branch of a palm tree. We take branches of myrtle. We take branches of willow.
Do you
We
have them
take
there?
the seed. Sorry.
Do you have them there?
Yes, of course, Ruth.
You
I
do,
did I did my homework.
in your little pack.
We have the citric, citric. You say?
Citron.
Citron, yeah, but it looks like lemon, but it's not lemon at all.
No.
Okay, it doesn't smell like lemon. The peel is not like lemon. It's a different kind of a fruit. So this is the one. This is the citron fruit, and we also have this. Wait a minute. Okay, we put it in a nice case like that.
Now it's really important when you get these that they're in good condition, isn't it?
That they are what?
In good condition.
Oh yeah, of course.
So
They're
now
all.
why? Why is that? Like what is so special about having, like, I know there's a big thing about getting the perfect citron, and
Yes, it has to be without blemish. It can't be damaged by any means. It really should be perfect. I mean, you are dedicating something to the Lord, something the Lord commanded you to do. Think about Cain and Abel, for example, when they brought their offerings to the Lord. God went after Abel's offering. Why? Because he brought something which was more exquisite. He didn't just choose. He didn't choose something which was type B and dedicated that to the Lord. You're doing something; it has to be right. It's like bringing a sacrifice. When you sacrifice something, you have to do it right because it represents your relationship with your Father in heaven. And it's the same thing with these things. So we have the palm tree branch. We have 3 branches of myrtle right there. Okay, attached to it. I just tied it like here, and we also have the willow, and the citron. Now, why should we take all of these together and use them? The simple answer is simply because God said so. There is no better answer about that. Apart from that, there are all kinds of teachings. What do these represent? So according to one teaching, the palm tree branch represents your back, okay, and the leaves of the myrtle branch represent the eyes, and the willow branch represents, the leaves of it, they represent your lips. Okay, they have a shape of lips, and the citron represents your heart. And all together, when you have your back, your eyes, your lips, and your heart all together, when you bring them together, and you use them, you wave them, it's a representation of you recruiting everything you've got, all your senses, your mobility, your ability to worship, to bow down, your heart surrendering. You bring all that and you dedicate it to Him. And we just, we wave it to every possible direction, north, south, east, west, up and down. And we basically show that we are worshiping him with everything we've got. Another teaching would be that each one represents, each thing here represents a kind of a person. You have people like the citron, and they have smell and they have taste. Well, clearly they don't have COVID, but they have the smell and they have the taste, like the citron. The smell and the taste represents the spirit and the actual doing, the practice. You have people who have only the smell, they only have the spirit, the spirituality, but they're lacking the practice. You have people, that's the myrtle, right? It has smell, but it doesn't have taste. You have the palm tree, which has the sweet fruit of the date. This represents people with the taste, but without the smell. Okay, so they have the practice, but they're lacking the spirit. Okay, and you have the myrtle and you have the willow branch, which is lacking the taste and lacking the smell, and they have neither. But all together, we bring all of these kinds of people together, and we bring them in unity, and we give this to God. Okay, all of us together, and we also need the ones without the smell and the taste, like the willow branch. It's also part of it. It's one organism combined out of all, and each component is an indication for a kind of a person. For instance, you have teachings talking about these four species representing all of us nations, all of us children of God coming together. The different kinds, and this is all of us being given together, and this is with the inspiration of Zechariah 14. In Zechariah 14, if you want, we can read from there a little bit about Feast of Tabernacles. In Zechariah 14, we read about the necessity in the end of the days, after the last war, after the war against Gog from Magog. The Lord is going to, the day of the Lord, when the Lord is going to show himself to all of us human beings, not just the Jewish people. We read about the necessity for everybody to come to Jerusalem and celebrate Feast of Tabernacles. In Zechariah 14, we can read, if you want, we can read from verse 16, please.
16.
And it shall be.
Zechariah chapter 4. And it shall come to pass that everyone who's left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whichever of the families of the earth do not come up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, on then there will be no rain. If the family of Egypt will not come up and enter in, they shall have no rain. They shall receive the plague with which the Lord strikes the nations who do not come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all the nations that do not come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. In that day, holiness to the Lord shall be engraved on the bells of the horses. The pots in the Lord's house shall be like the bowls before the altar. Yes, every pot in Jerusalem and Judah shall be holiness to the Lord of hosts. Everyone who sacrifices shall come and take them and cook in them. In that day there shall no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts.
Okay, so we're talking about a reality. By the way, Egypt here it's not about the actual Egypt which we know about today. Egypt represents a power in the world, a spirit in the world. Egypt represents an empire with great influence in the world. And usually in all prophecies like this one, also in Ezekiel and also in Isaiah, we read about central empires through which the Lord will teach all of us nations something. We read about Tyre, we read about Egypt, we read about Assyria, we read about Moabites. We read about these nations which represent a spirit in the world, which the Lord will teach us something through them. So here in Zechariah, you can see that again and again, verse after verse, he's repeating the words Feast of Tabernacles. You must come and celebrate Feast of Tabernacles. This is the day. Now, it is not for no reason that Feast of Tabernacles was chosen. I mean, we could have also said, Feast of Weeks, the day when Torah was given. Everything's okay?
Yep.
Yeah, we could have said Passover, when the Lord brought us out of Egypt. We could say Rosh Hashanah, the new year, the day when the world was created. Why not that day? Why not Day of Atonement? We could all fast together and ask for His forgiveness as His children. No, it's Feast of Tabernacles. And the reason we see for the Feast of Tabernacles specifically to be chosen comes from the book of Numbers. Let's go to the book of Numbers for a minute. Book of Numbers, chapter 29. Okay, we don't have to read the whole thing, of course. Okay, can you please read Ruth, chapter 29 in the book of Numbers, verse 12 only, please? Sorry, 12 and 13.
Okay. On the 15th day of the 7th month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work, and you shall keep a feast to the Lord 7 days. You shall present a burnt offering, an offering made by fire as a sweet aroma to the Lord. 13 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 lambs in their first
Okay,
year.
how many young bulls? 13.
Yes.
Right? 13. Very good. Can you please go to verse 17? What does it say?
On the second day, present 12 young bulls.
Okay, that's on the second day. We have 7 days. We start on the first day with 13. We go on the second day with 12, right?
Yes.
What does it say? Okay, what does it say in verse 20?
Surprise, surprise. On the third day, present 11 bulls.
11 bulls, right. And then we go down to 10, we go down to 9, to 8, and to 7 in the end. Okay, so on the 7th day, you can see that in verse 32, on the 7th day, 7 bulls. Okay, so we go from 13 to 7. If you add up 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, okay, sum it all up, you get 70. Okay, there is a formula you can do. You can take the lowest number, which is 7. You can take the highest one, which is 13, add them up. That's 20, and divided by the number of components you have, and multiplied by the number of components you have, and divided by 2. That was good, right? So sum it all up, and you get the number 70. The number 70 is a representational number to represent all the nations in the world. Why? Because when you go back to Genesis chapter 10, and you read about the development of humanity after the big flood, you read about Noah coming out from the ark with his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Yefet, and then you see all the children that they begot. And when you sum it all up in chapter 10 of Genesis, the restart of humanity, you get to the number 70. You have 70 names altogether in that chapter. 70 is a number for us which represents the nations. On Feast of Tabernacles, we sacrifice, we used to sacrifice, and hopefully we will sacrifice 70 bulls for 70 nations. We bring an offering on behalf of the world. It's the feast of intercession. It's the feast in which we intercede for all the nations in the world. Not for no reason, Zechariah prophesied that all the nations should come and celebrate Feast of Tabernacles to the Lord. Because that's the day when we intercede, in which we intercede for the world. We bring an offering on behalf of the nations. It's a universal holiday. It's a universal day, not just a specific day for the Jewish nation. Awesome. And that is why there is a long teaching that also connects the 4 species as being representation of the different nations in the world, and how we bring them all together and we dedicate it to the Lord all together as His children.
When I read the first reading I read, there's a lot of talk about fire. Is that still an element, Sukkot?
Well, there is not these days, because we don't have an altar. the fire you've read about is the fire is the fire which is burning on the altar.
No, I just
It's the
wondered if is there still the symbolism of fire used at all?
well, the fire is a more general image for how we bring the offering. How do we bring something inside? So the fire outside is also the fire inside, and it's an everlasting flame which would always burn in our hearts. There's a long teaching about this, but it's not just for Feast of Tabernacles. It's about everything we read about in the book of Leviticus.
Wow. Gil, can you talk a little bit about how do you teach your children about this feast?
Well, it's
What's
a process
important
because
for them?
it's a process because we don't just fall into this feast out of nowhere. I mean, we're in the process. I mean, this month in the Hebrew calendar is a process. We started with Rosh Hashanah 2 weeks ago, which is the new year, which is a day of judgment. It's a day when we talk about God as a judge, as a righteous judge who sits on his throne and gives a little you know, a little what?
Tap on the head.
Tap? Yes, a little tap on the head for every living creature, for every plant, everything that he created gets a little tap, and to show that God remembers it. So that's Rosh Hashanah, and from that day we transform. We have 10 days of transition, which take us to Day of Atonement, the Day of Mercy, Day of Forgiveness. And after that, 4 days later, we have Feast of Tabernacles. And Feast of Tabernacles, when we think about Song of Songs, we read about the judgment, between the beloved and his bride. We read about the forgiveness and the beloved accepting her back. The Feast of Tabernacles is like the celebration coming after the forgiveness. It's like the jewelries which the bride would wear going to to reestablish the vows of the matrimony.
So it's like the wedding feast.
It's like the wedding feast. Yes, it's like the wedding feast. It's like we actually call it the bride's jewels. That's how we call this day. Also, we talk about it as the bride's jewels, tachshitei kala. Why? Because that's the day of celebration coming after the judgment and forgiveness and the reestablishment of the relationship. And the way we reestablish it is that goes back to what we started with, the trust, about her trusting, putting her trust in him. And for us to teach the next generation about this feast is through talking about trust. What does it mean to trust? How do we show trust? I mean, is it just a slogan? Are these just empty words we use speaking, or is it an actual thing? Where do we see the trust on daily basis? To what extent do we trust him? To what extent in this time, in this season now, I mean, after experiencing everything which is going on in the world for the last 18 months or so, trust has a serious aspect. It's a serious thing to put our trust in him. And that's basically the day. I think that's the best way to convey the messages of this holiday more than anything. Of course, sitting, I mean, spending our time here the entire day, but more than going over, more than using the 4 species which we talked about, more than reading scriptures, really talking eye to eye, really talking about the way, what does it mean to put our trust in him? Right. For real. That's the way for us to do it.
And you find you can talk about those kinds of things with the children.
With different age.
The children learn to wave those things at what
Yeah,
age?
of course. Yeah, of course. When I come back from the synagogue in the morning, well, I go with my 2 eldest my 2 eldest boys. They have already had their bar mitzvah, so they have their own sets of the 4 species. and then we would come. We would have breakfast in the sukkah, and after that, the younger ones would also use them, and of course they would make the blessing, and we would talk about what does it mean to do it, and as much explanations as possible, because it's a very wise generation. Even the young kids, they are so they are much more developed. The way they think and the kind of questions they have in mind, they're far more developed than we were when we were their age. So and I think we can't just tell them, okay, do it like this. We also have to explain to them why we do it like this. And when you begin to explain it, and when you actually invite them to take part, that's an invitation for discussions to open up. So that's the way we deal with it.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Gil.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
It's so great. I mean, because you can read about it and and get all the facts, but just to experience a little bit of just a slightly more personal sense.
In the days of old, before COVID-19, if you remember, we used to hold an evening here in Sukkot, together, when people who came to Israel back in the day when it was still possible,
it'll come. It's coming.
It'll come for sure. It'll come in that day
next year. That gives new meaning to the words next year in Jerusalem, doesn't it? Okay, I'm just
for sure. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
And have a happy Feast of Tabernacles.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. God bless you all.
Lovely to see you all. And I'm just trying to remember if there's anything I need to tell you. Those of you who registered for our next sessions, don't worry if you don't hear from Gil until much closer to the time. So I think you know about that, but okay. Bless you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very
God
much.
bless.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Gil.
Bye-bye. That's me.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Good to see you, Barbara. It's been a long time.
Yeah. You too.
Yeah.